Across the country, new sporting events were coming on the scene, and the Iron Range would be at the forefront of one in particular, racing.
It was a very, very big deal then because the automobile was still a relatively new invention.
In 1904, Hibbing's first automobile, owned by Fred Smith, made its way to the village. Almost as soon as it arrived, residents formed the Hibbing Speedway Association and began construction of a raceway and grandstands at Pool location. Initially, the contests had horses and later motorcycles take to the track. But by 1909, the Mesabi Range boasted more than 50 automobiles, and the Hibbing Automobile Association was organized. In September of 1911, they held the first motor car race at the Hibbing Raceway. The town's first car owner, Fred Smith, was the winner. And from there, the sport of race car driving took off.
People, they really had their hearts in promoting motor racing in this area, and would do almost anything to make it successful. Some of the races held here were advertised from California to New York. They had fully intended Hibbing to become a hub of motorsports in the entire country.
Long before the stock car racing of today, some of the earliest motor cars ever made thrilled racing fans with feats of speed across the city of Hibbing. Some of the nation's earliest motorsports contests were held on the Iron Range, with significant world records set right here.
The Hibbing Raceway was a quite popular venue for racers all over. But road racing at that time was still very popular among the public because people were now owning their automobiles for the first time and traveling with them, and road racing was something they could identify more closely with than racing on a track.
So to complement the half-mile oval dirt track at the grandstands, they set up a 10-mile loop across city streets and roads and set the stage for what would be the biggest racing event ever held in Hibbing, a 100-mile Indy road race. A former racer, race enthusiast, and historian, Dave Aho stumbled on the particulars of that major race.
It started with a document that I found that was for sale from the estate of a major motorsports book publisher in this country. And it was the handwritten notes of an official that was at a race in Hibbing on the 4th of July, 1916. There were about 6 cars in the race.
Aho says mechanical problems during a practice run knocked other cars out prior to the start. This is the only known photo from the race, but Aho's diligence dug up plenty of other evidence of the prestigious occasion.
I was able to find all of the American Automobile Association's, AAA, records for their sanctions by year and by sanction number. And sure enough, there is the 4th of July 1916 race sanctioned. I have the sanction number, and it was issued to the Hibbing Auto Club. Looking in the Chisholm newspaper and the Hibbing paper, I found all of the details.
Details including the report of a train wreck on the very same day that was likely caused by race planners.
Part of the race course was down First Avenue in Hibbing, where Howard Street is now. First Avenue crossed railroad tracks. The tracks were the property of the Great Northern Railway, and the track officials wanted to cover the tracks over with dirt so the cars could pass over without hitting the actual tracks. They covered over the tracks at that crossing, and a little while later a Great Northern passenger train came through, hit the sand on the crossing, and rolled the locomotive over. There were some significant injuries, although no fatalities, and a number of rather large lawsuits ensued.
That incident didn't stop the race, however. Hibbing's 100-mile Indy Road run was completed, with Chisholm native Elmer Shannon the victor. Shannon went on to race at the Indianapolis 500 3 years later.
There was no Indianapolis 500 in 1917 and 1918 because of World War I. In that period of time, Elmer Shannon purchased a Duesenberg race car, and when the Indianapolis 500 was set to resume in May of 1919, he headed to Indy with his new race car. It was entered as the Masaba Special.
But that is far from the end of Hibbing's association with Indy and national racing renown.
Overall, it is nearly unbelievable the number of world-famous drivers and world-famous race cars that have been to races in Hibbing. At least 26 drivers that are currently enshrined in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame have been in Hibbing, and that would include Parnelli Jones and Johnny Rutherford. It also includes 4 Indianapolis 500 winners that have raced in Hibbing.
The original Hibbing Raceway, like so much of the Iron Range, fell victim to mining interests and was swallowed up by the Hull Rust mine pit. Over the years, its replacement has served the enthusiasms of Aho and so many like him. Proud racers, fans, and residents, more than happy to follow in the tracks of racing legends of days gone by.